Hello and welcome to kind of a think tank video to hopefully get out ahead of things and help clear up some stuff about Storm's new level so that I can spend the review video talking about the ball reaction rather than spending most of it explaining what's up. I will have a video soon featuring Zach, but in the meantime there are a number of review videos out for it now featuring a number of comparisons, so there's plenty to look at and see. Now if a review video is doing its job, you should feel confident in what you're buying or not buying and be able to get a great idea about a ball before you throw it. Now there's always more to learn when you're actually throwing a ball versus just watching it roll. But watching a video or a number of videos should get you 85 to 90% of the way there, and I feel like that's where I'm at, so we're going to talk because it seems like there's a lot of confusion out there about what this ball is and or what it's supposed to be. Now, sorry in advance, but there probably won't be a lot of visually intriguing things on the screen. I don't really want to use or steal anyone else's personal videos. The level is absolutely, without a doubt, in the urethane-like direction. The core numbers at a 259 RG and a 027 differential are right on top of Zen U and New Blue numbers, but to be fair, also in Tundra and Tundra Blue Fire territory, so very weak core. High RG, so it's going to roll later and maybe never even get into much of a roll to begin with, and flare very little, so easy length out of the core, but also control and a smooth reaction down lane. However, once you look at the ball reaction, you can throw the Tundras out because they're obviously just in weaker, pure reactive territory, like a high road that flares less. Definitely meant for that direction for drier and or heavily transition lanes. Now, once you add the cover in, it's solid black. It comes at 1,000 grit. Early and very smooth reacting ball, plus the vast majority of the reviews out there have compared the level to both the pitch black and the IQ78U, and it's definitely that direction. It's very obviously in that zone with a twist on the overall shape. The confusion comes in because Storm, perhaps to their credit, haven't mentioned the U word anywhere. RPM as a new solid reactive cover, very high oil absorption rate, which is decidedly non-urethane-esque, but much longer surface retention, or it resists lane shining more than typical reactive balls, which is urethane-esque because urethane balls typically hold their surface much longer than reactive balls. However, Motive came out with Duramax a while ago, which is basically this concept, an additive that slows lane shining for reactive balls. I've thrown a few balls with it now, and it's absolutely the real deal. So if the level follows suit, that's a very big plus. However, there's a whole lot of sweeping marketing stuff about it, but most of it's very hypey and vague, and that doesn't really mean anything to us. And the things that are plainly put out there and explained seem kind of contradictory to what the ball actually does. They go into great detail about how oil absorption speed affects ball reaction, or the faster oil absorbs, the more responsive the ball will be to friction. And the level has a very high oil absorption rate, but it's an extremely smooth ball. Some have also noticed the similarity to the spec cover that came out on the Crux Prime, which they were also really excited about at the time, but the big difference there is that it was a very low or slow oil absorption cover, also very smooth reacting, but durability of reaction or reaction longevity was the big selling point there. Ultimately, it ended up being kind of polarizing because it was really early and smooth. I think we only ever saw it in the solid version stateside. Then the Gravity Evolve was pretty bad, and then they actually couldn't get the materials to make the cover anymore, so that's why the Sunstorm was a limited edition. They just made as many as they could with what was left, and that was it. So this cover seems like it acts kind of like spec, but it's very high absorbing rather than very low absorbing. Now, when Hammer came out with the new blue, they were all in on it acts like urethane, but it's not urethane, because the new PBA rules disqualified the Purple Hammer, plus the Pitch Black, which were the two staple urethane balls out there for tough conditions. So this kind of an idea is important, and the writing has been on the wall in regards to urethane balls for a while now, so everyone knew something was coming. The funny thing is that the new blue seemed like the new direction or where they wanted to go, and then the Black Hammer was kind of hastily thrown out there, seeming like more of an emergency stopgap just in case. But the new blue didn't really end up fitting, while the black, I think, has been a lot better and more effective than they were expecting. The new blue does seem remarkable at 500 or 1,000 grit, which is typical urethane surface, but it shines up fairly quickly and then gets very clean and dynamic. It's a unique and pretty good reaction. AJ Rice shot 900 with one after all. But when you want and need true urethane for a 6 or 8 game block or something, it doesn't fit. And while it has a niche shined up on a house shot, it's just not reactive enough when you need reactive and not urethane enough when you need urethane. Flip back to the level, which is obviously in urethane territory, judging from the several reviews out there, looking at it against the Pitch Black and the IQ78. I appreciate that they're avoiding calling it urethane to avoid a new blue kind of situation, but that's left a lot of people really confused on what it's supposed to be. This is why I really push learning the technical side, because the core numbers and the cover, the ball details alone put you most of the way there to begin with the core numbers, it coming at 1,000 grit. Then when you see it roll a few times, it's very early and smooth. It's meant to be urethane without actually being urethane, or like a technically reactive Zen U that doesn't shine up in 3 games. The Zen U, if you remember, was a mostly urethane ball, or was urethane that shaped more, and it was, as far as reaction goes, it was in new blue territory because it did the same thing. It looked okay with surface on it. It was actually a little too responsive to begin with surface, and then it fell into that same niche. It shined up too quick and wasn't urethane enough when you needed urethane, and not reactive enough when you needed reactive. Now, the IQ78, or the red ball, just obviously hasn't competed with the black hammer. They've kind of shoehorned it in there and have made it function when they had to, but it's just not remotely close to a pitch black, and since Storm hasn't even made a decent urethane ball since the pitch black, I think it's obvious they needed to go a different direction, and that direction is the level. It's archy like a pitch black, it's got a little more definition, but is still really controllable, which is a plus. And if it does in fact hold its surface for a sustained period of time, that solves the one major problem with the new blue. The one backwards part is the oil absorption, because a big part of urethane durability for one, and overall reaction for two, is flaring very little and intentionally creating carry down so that you have traction in the front and a ton of control down lane, so the ball hooks early, is very even and consistent, and extremely slow and controllable down lane so that you can keep the ball in front of you and have a very straight and manageable path to the pocket on tougher conditions. Now, if this ball stays at 1,000 grit, 027 is a medium-low differential, so it's not going to flare much, but it's still going to flare some. You're going to have some flare ring separation, so if it holds its surface well, doesn't create carry down or creates very little, and absorbs oil very quickly, I'm not sure how that's going to really work. It's so early and smooth that it hasn't liked angle much, if at all, in any of the videos that I've watched. So what it's going to do with that amount of surface and absorbing oil is really burn up the front and mid part of the lane, which is going to force you inside to get the ball down the lane. But then that ball isn't going to want to move much. Urethane can typically handle some head burn because it doesn't absorb oil. So even if you wipe the ball off, it still stays kind of slimy or slick. That's why everyone that uses urethane knows that you always have to get a couple shots on it in practice, even if you're not going to start with it, because all true urethane that's dead fresh hooks off the planet for a couple shots before you get some oil on the cover. That tames it down. And so even if the heads burn and it starts hooking more, you'll still get the control for the back 40 to 45 feet of the lane. So a little loft or a little more speed keeps you in business and keeps the ball in front of you. Now, I'm not seeing it with this ball yet because it hasn't looked terribly impressive in any review I've seen. Everything really just shows the IQ78 still looking bad and the pitch black still looking like a goat. The level looks more like it's trying to be a purple hammer, but the absorption thing is where the big wrench is here that we don't know about yet. So we're going to need a few months of competition to really figure it out. The PBA gets started here soon, so if it's viable, the SPI pros are definitely going to be leaning on it. And somebody like Justin Knowles that left the hammer urethane behind is going to be a big barometer for me because he's in urethane a lot. That's what I have for now. Hopefully this helps. Once I get a review up with Zach, he's got a couple pitch blacks, a couple IQ78s, and I'm getting him into a Zen U as well. Plus maybe throw a reactive ball in there. He does have one of the new solid tropical surges that also has nearly identical numbers too, so we can really figure out what's going on with the level and get to brass tacks on exactly where it's going to fit and how it's going to stack up. Thanks for watching, and may the strikes be with you.